We are recording.
I will do that. So happy Thanksgiving Eve. So this is the COVID preamble. Because of the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically over the Zoom platform. It is authorized by the county's declaration of local emergency, the county's continuity of government ordinance, this authority's resolution, and Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2 subsections A3. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Everyone on the phone and attending via Zoom from the public is in listen-only mode. The following instructions apply to those who wish to speak during a public comment. If you are listening on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to notify the meeting facilitator. For those joining by telephone, please use the *9 to indicate you would like to comment. Tell the board your full name and the magisterial district in which you reside before getting into the substance of your comment. If you don't know your magisterial district, provide a general location for your home or business. The street location or neighborhood name will suffice. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 3 minutes to comment. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. And with that explanation, and then I do have a short explanation about the public meeting notice, just a clarification. I will ask the board members to identify themselves and their general location. I'll state for the minutes that this meeting was noticed by a general annual schedule that this board approves. I believe it's in January, might be in August, but it's been posted, giving the dates and the times of the meeting. Additionally, Mr. Culp, he posts an electronic notice on the county's website. This meeting has been noticed with the Zoom address and the materials in sufficient time. I can't say an exact date, but I know it's been up there almost for a month, I would say. So that's appropriate. The reason I'm making my comments is that I supplement those notices by posting a notice on the bulletin board in the lobby of the county office building and in the lobby or the hallway of the community development office. I wasn't able to do that, and it's my fault more than anything, until Monday. Arguably, that's sufficient time. If that were the only notice that were given, it doesn't meet my standards. And some people may complain about that, but I want to make clear that those are the circumstances. In my opinion, the electronic notice is perfectly adequate and reasonable for an electronic meeting. Additionally, the date and time has been posted for at least 3 months. So I don't have any concerns about the propriety of the notice for this meeting. But I just want to, if people did have a question about, the notice that I posted came a little bit later than usual, I wanted to just clarify that I don't think that raises concerns about the legality of this meeting. That's my mea culpa. So now we'll get right into the attendance. Let's see, Bucky Walsh.
First, let me say, Richie, thank you for your effort in posting those notices. And I am not at all concerned by a slight delay this time. I'm at my home in Albemarle County.
Let's see, Waldo Jaquith.
I'm here at my home in Stony Point.
Trevor Henry.
Electronically present at my residence in Elmore County.
Bill Fritz.
I'm here in my house in Charlottesville.
Supervisor Palmer.
I am here and I am in my house in Ivy.
And Supervisor Price.
Supervisor Price let us know she wasn't going to be able to attend.
All right. Let's see. So, Mr. Chair, with that, we have a quorum and can proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deloria. We've got a quorum. We'll call this meeting to order. Our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Hopefully everyone has a copy and had a chance to review it. Are there any suggested changes or revisions? Seeing none, I'll move the agenda be approved as it's written. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The agenda is approved. Takes us to brief announcements by authority members. Is Anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? And in the interest of being expeditious, we'll just move right on then. Public comment. This is the opportunity, as Richie was describing, for members of the public to make a comment. We'd welcome anyone to use the raise hand feature and let us know that they'd like to make a comment if they would. We'll wait a moment or so to see if anybody raises their hand. Not seeing it happen. So again, the night before Thanksgiving, we'll move right on. We've got the approval of the September 22nd, October 12th, and October 27th meeting minutes. I delayed the September 22nd minutes last time because I was uncertain whether I had seen them. So I thank you for your indulgence on that. And I would also like to thank Mr. Inafuentes for producing the October 27th minutes. And Bill Fritz for having to do 2 sets of minutes, you know, when we really should only had 1 meeting. So good for you, Bill, even though you took a week off after that. Are there any substantive changes to the minutes? Have there been any changes to the minutes, particularly the ones most recently issued by Mr. Inafuentes? No? Is there a motion to approve these minutes en banc?
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay.
Liz got the second that time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Then we'll take all 3 sets of minutes as approved. And that takes us into old business. We'll start with the VADI 2020 update. Mike, do you have anything short for us on that?
Sure, I'm going to promote Derek Kelly from CenturyLink Lumen to a panelist. So just bear with me a second while that happens. VADI 2020, a quick update. The payment has been processed, sent to Monroe, Louisiana, and we're waiting on confirmation that CenturyLink is updating their books to show that it's been paid. Just to clarify with the board of directors here, we continue to take orders. The work itself is done, and some people are still placing their orders, and those orders are put into the bucket, and then CenturyLink will go and schedule them and do the installs. Derek, any updates on 20 that you want to provide? Or I can move on to 21. Does anyone have any questions about 20?
No updates here, just sort of gone into business as usual, and we're working with Mike on some of the reporting closeout documents that DHCD needs.
Okay, then let's move on to 2021.
Okay, 2021, I'll turn the microphone over to Derek and let him provide an update. I know Jones Mill Road is starting construction, but Derek probably has right away type update. So Derek, over to you.
Yeah, so Jones Mill Road, we started construction, I think this week. It was either this week or last week. It's all running together. So they are working on getting fiber in the ground for that, and all the equipment is here and in place. And then right on the heels of that, Old Garth Heights will be the next area that we do. We're working with VDOT. They wanted us to change a couple things on the design section. We were going to go aerial. They want us to go ahead and bury it. So we're redesigning some of that. So as soon as the crews are done with construction with Jones Mill, they'll go right over to Old Garth Heights, and that should be a pretty quick job because I think it's less than 10 homes. And then all the permits for Tillman Road have been submitted or will be submitted in the next couple of days. So we anticipate as soon as they're done with those jobs, they'll just jump right over to Tillman Road, and then finishing up the engineering on the next 4 or 5 jobs. So we're about 70–80% done with engineering for Snow Hill and Gilbert Station Road. And I think some of the engineering with Advanced Mill and Milton Hills is either complete or nearing completion. So we should be ahead of schedule, and as long as the weather cooperates, we should start taking orders for Jones Mill Road here in the next probably about 2 or 3 weeks. I would say by mid-December, we'll be taking orders for that job. And then the first week of January, we're anticipating being able to take orders for the next 2 jobs, Old Garth Heights and Tillman Road. So excited to see some customers coming online here in the next probably 30–60 days.
That
Great.
sounds great.
Yep. Thanks for the update. Just to update the ABBA board, Jason and I have been working on a recurring monthly meeting, which Derek and CenturyLink representatives will be attending, and there'll be open meetings for the community, but we'll talk about that during the broadband accessibility and affordability report. So we'll quickly move on to get through all of this. Any questions for Derek or me on body 21?
Mike, is now an appropriate time for a personal announcement?
Yes, I think so. I think that would be fine, Derek. Floor is yours.
This is the first time saying it in a public setting, so it'll probably feel a little bit weird, but after 17 years, I am leaving the company. So next Friday is going to be my last day with the company. And after 17 years, and my wife's been with the company going on 20 years, it's a little bit bittersweet, but I'm taking another opportunity that'll come out at some point over the next 2 weeks or so. But we're working with Mike and Jason on a smooth transition to make sure that while they're working to backfill my job, that the resources are there to continue moving everything along and communicating with you guys. So just wanted to say thank you. It's been a fun year and a half. I hate that we haven't actually met most of you in person, but it feels like we've spent a great deal of time together over the last 18 months or so, and just want to say thank you for your guys' leadership and commitment. I think a lot of counties across the state and across the country are trying to figure out how to get to this level of organization, and they were years behind. And so I just applaud you guys for your work, and for the volunteers on the board, just especially thanks for your time.
Congratulations.
Best wishes for your new role.
Yes.
Yeah, Derek, congrats, and thanks for all the support you've provided to the county. Look forward to the transitioning coordination, and wish you the best. Thank you very much.
And I hope your wife is she leaving too?
No, we are moving to Pennsylvania, but that was well before any job change happened. She took a job in Philadelphia still with the company, so she's sticking around.
Oh, okay.
I know you're going to miss these pre-holiday meetings that we have, so that'll be definitely bittersweet.
I was wondering who was bringing the pumpkin pie.
Hard to do on Zoom.
Right.
Or you could just watch us eat it, I guess.
Well, the
Anyway.
minutes will reflect that we won't have Derek to kick around anymore. We'll have to find somebody else. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. I really appreciate the partnership and getting things rolling here. So glad to know 21 is working its way through. So we're excited about that. Appreciate it.
You're leaving it in a good position.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
Mike, you want to take us on to 2022?
I will. Yeah, sure enough. So 2022, the schedule for 22 included a challenge process. The group TJPDC and Firefly informed me that they had received multiple challenges to their large regional application. And that's to expected, just based on the number of passings and just the length and how long they're going to be working on the project. 3 years worth of work to hit the number of passings is a major effort. The rebuttal that they have put together was submitted. The next step is for DHCD to look at that rebuttal and then inform the group on their decision, and that is December 3rd. So next Friday is the next big date to find out, what the rebuttal process hands us. Hopefully there's no changes in Albemarle, and even if they are, there is a commitment from Firefly due to the RISE MOU and other things that we've done with them that they're going to serve the number of passings that were submitted in the application. So in a sense, we're whole either way. It's just working through the process and seeing how the rebuttal happens. So we're anxiously awaiting a December timeframe for the award announcement, and we'll have more. Hopefully we'll be able to celebrate it at the December meeting of the Broadband Authority. Questions or comments, concerns?
You've allayed all my fears, so good job.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Moving on. Is that okay, Chair?
Let's go on to the phone and internet service.
Okay, so
outage.
the board knows that Jason and I have been working diligently to make our organization of requests that come in for either internet service or phone service or outages. And primarily, a lot of our requests come in are individuals and families reporting outages. So we've done a much better job of tracking them, and we now have an historical database of all of that. As we get into the broadband accessibility and affordability report, Jason's going to take a brief tour, a very brief tour of our new pages. And one of those pages will allow community members to directly contact either the SCC, which will be the way that you report phone outages, or the FCC, the federal, sorry about that, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. I usually know how to say that, as a report for internet service outage. You would think there would be one consolidated way to report, because these days phone and internet is so related that you would like to just make one complaint or one report. You have to make a determination on which of those two agencies the reports will go. And Jason and I are here to help everyone. So public, there's a lot of people listening in today. You can always send an email to baao@albemarle.org. So that's BAAO@albemarle.org. And we're glad to help you navigate the best way to formulate your complaint, or just find out more information about when service is coming to you. So it's a great way to get some information about how to contact us and make sure that you're getting the service you want, and just get some insight on where we are with service coming. So that's it for that one.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Any questions?
How are you publicizing that BAAO email address?
It'll be on the webpage themselves, and we also have flyers that we've been handing out for our affordability. So our affordability efforts are getting the word out that the new email address is available for people to take advantage of, or not, or utilize is probably a better word. Don't take advantage of it. Just send an email and we'll answer.
I suspect it'll be quite a while that people will still, and even once the word gets out, they'll still use broadband at albemarle.org to distribute that. And we'll simply rely on you to intercept those emails and redirect them appropriately.
That's a great point, Chair. I've been doing that briefly. You know, it's definitely a good, whenever I respond all to a broadband@albemarle.org, I'll make sure that I communicate to the person who sent the email that a better choice would be BAAO.
And if you're sending back to them, not from mcult, but from BAAO.org, then further replies go back to, to the email address you want it to go to.
Yes, sir. Can do. Yep.
That's undoubtedly going to make it a lot easier for you to track activity.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions on the phone and internet service outage reporting?
Maybe it's time to go on to the financial report.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Trevor, we had an update. It was exciting.
Well, we did, yeah. And Mike even further updated that the payment actually has been made, and we're just waiting for confirmation on it. So that is movement. Mike, under the, well, never mind. I guess just checking, Mike, you're gonna, as part of your broadband report coming up next, talk about the pending work session with the board in January. Is that something that you'll mention tonight?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair. The financial report has been updated with the 2020 payment that is checks in the mail, I guess.
We're paying our bills.
Yeah, we're paying our bills. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. All righty, broadband accessibility and affordability report, Mike.
All right, thank you, Chair. I'll try to be brief and start off with one of the big activities that the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office has been working on is tracking all of the outages and complaints and concerns that have come in from our community members. And during that process, it was suggested that the Board of Supervisors have a work session with CenturyLink representatives. And as part of our role as the office here, we have coordinated that, and it will be January 12th between 2 and 4. So during the regular Board of Supervisors meeting, we're going to have a 45-minute work session with CenturyLink representatives to go through the numerous outages that occurred over the summer and into the fall, and then just to discuss some investments that are happening within CenturyLink, as well as the transition of the CenturyLink assets in Virginia to a potential new company called Brightspeed. So there's going to be some discussion and just back and forth, and probably some additional tasks for county staff to work with CenturyLink to perform. So we're excited about it. We think it's going to be a good outcome, and looking forward to hearing from all of the Board of Supervisor members and from CenturyLink during that work session, January 12th, sometime between 2 and 4, and the exact time will be announced when the full board meeting agenda comes out. Any questions about that one before I move on? Because that's probably the highlight, and then we'll get into the other
Yeah.
part.
I'm just trying to understand how it's going to work. I'm just, so there's going to be a couple of representatives, and they're going to do a presentation and try to answer some of the questions before, right from the start. And then the Board of Supervisors will ask questions after that presentation.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mike, I'd like to suggest that your office should prepare, 1 or 2 or 3 slides worth of details with some of the data that you have. So, not just let's assume there's a problem because everyone knows there is. Here's what we have. Here's what we know. And maybe CenturyLink knows something else, and they can elaborate on that.
Yes. Yeah, we have the data that we need to put into our presentation. We're going to be working with CenturyLink to make sure that they're both in sync with each other. And certainly the majority of the time will be spent on talking about how we're going to work with CenturyLink and the new company to improve service. So you're right on. It'll definitely be a presentation of actual data, data that we know we've collected and formulated based on the number of outages that have occurred. CenturyLink will add in what their tracking has said and what types of investments they're doing to correct in the future, and then talk about ways that they're continuing to improve, and allow the Board of Supervisors to ask questions about both the data that we've collected, as well as where CenturyLink is headed with improvement process.
And so you'll give a presentation, and then CenturyLink will give a presentation? Is that how this is set up?
Right now, I think it's a joint presentation where I'll talk about our data, then CenturyLink will talk about their data and what they did to correct the issues. So in a sense, yes, we hope to keep it relatively quick and efficient so that the Board of Supervisors can ask additional questions.
And so sometimes when we have these presentations at the board, we don't get a lot in our packet. I don't know what the plan is, if there's going to be more than an executive summary in the packet, but I would just caution you to get as much into the packet as humanly possible,
Okay.
because that will prepare the board to ask meaningful questions and think about some of the complaints that they have gotten as board members, and put those complaints into the context that your data and CenturyLink's information gives, because there is a lot of there's a lot of anger out there that has been transmitted to individual board members, and on the part of some of the problems that CenturyLink has had. We all know that. That's not news. And I'm just thinking that it'll be a little easier for people to sort of prepare and think about their questions for a productive meeting. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I like the suggestion. It will be important to collect the information from each Board of Supervisor member, I'll have to work with Trevor and others to make sure we're doing that in the right fashion, whether it's, with a 2x2, so we talk to each pair, however we're going to do it. But I agree, it would be important to make sure that CenturyLink hears in advance and we provide in advance in the packet some more detailed information. Makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I'm mostly interested in getting the board the information so they can think through to put what they've heard from the public in the context of what you're saying, because it's hard to respond. I mean, this is a wonderful chance for the Board of Supervisors to actually talk directly with CenturyLink. And I think that's going to be greatly appreciated. I just want to make it the most productive, and I won't be there, but I know that it helps me quite a bit when I see the information beforehand, rather than on some of these presentations where the first time we see it is that the day of, or 24 hours before. So anyway, thank you.
Supervisor Palmer, if I can ask, and I think I might need to run this by Richie as well, but would it be helpful to look through our database and look at dispositions for complaints and outage complaints and service complaints that we received that have included supervisors in the email exchange, and just compile them by magisterial district and send them to the appropriate supervisor ahead of the meeting. And if you think that is would be a helpful thing, then I'd ask Richie, I think, is there an appropriate mechanism for us to relay that information?
Since the first part of the question came to me, it sounds like a lot of work to do. And I know that people aren't going to want their name, public isn't going to want their names, obviously, in, said in a public meeting.
Right.
But maybe some of the more difficult areas, would be helpful.
Okay.
I know there's been some very difficult, every magisterial district has had certain roads in certain areas that have been particularly problematic. And so it might be a good idea just to kind of understand those bigger pieces, but I don't think it's necessary to go through all of that. But anyway, Richie.
No, what I was going to comment is I'm perfectly happy to work with Jason and Mike to look at the information, what they have, and whether we can somehow aggregate it in a proper format.
Yep.
So we can take that offline. It'll be fine.
Perfect.
Okay.
One quick question. Can I confirm you said January 12th for that meeting?
Yes, just to clarify, thank you, Bill, Fritz. We are expecting and have invited, and the change in management, the invitation is still out there, and Derek is working with me to make sure CenturyLink will be there. So I just want to be clear in case it gets mixed up somehow that the invitation stands. We had confirmation. Now with Derek leaving the company, they still have to have a replacement. So we're working in that direction. So just wanted to make sure. Thank you for asking that clarifying question, Bill. Appreciate that.
So moving along to new business then. Looking at the, no, you're not done?
No.
You talked about your meeting, man. All right, keep going.
I'm going to turn it over to Jason now. You've heard enough from me. I'd like to start with, where we're headed with the EBB and just a brief update on the emergency broadband benefit. And then if you would, Jason, just share your screen and walk through the new website. So in that order, affordability on the EBB, and then the new pages will help, because there's a lot of changes coming with the emergency broadband benefit. So go, you're
all right.
You're up.
So the emergency broadband benefit has seen tremendous success since it was introduced. Over 7 million households nationally, and in our area, it is reported out by zip code, and so we used some parcel level data and broke up the numbers in a couple of different ways to make an estimate of the impact in Albemarle County. And it looks like since the last time we updated, we've more than doubled to over 800 households served in Albemarle County. We don't yet have the ability to break that down by which service provider, which areas, but it is still a really, really great thing to know that 800 households are getting this $50 a month benefit. Those households will transition from EBB to the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is going to remain under USAC, but diminish its and maintain the same criteria for now, but diminish the benefit from $50 a month to $30 a month. The transition is supposed to be worked out by December 15th. So before the next meeting, we should have an update from the FCC on what the transition is going to look like. And the transition should be completed by the end of March of 2022. So all 800 of those households are going to receive this benefit through March, the $50 a month benefit. And then starting in April, they will receive the $30 a month benefit. We're hopeful that we can, in collaboration with DSS, bump up our EBB numbers before the transition happens, because I think it would be helpful in a lot of ways to just get those numbers as high as we can. So that way, by the time we've transitioned, as many people as possible will have qualified. And while they will see that benefit drop from $50 to $30, we're also hopeful that we can come up with a plan to help those for whom that drop is going to be a significant impact. That's something that we're going to be working on. And we hope to have that a package ready by that January meeting with the Board of Supervisors. We're working with DSS right now to work out the details. And we're also going to be working with our service providers to find out whether there are ways that we can actually collaborate with them to make sure that this is as smooth as possible, and that where possible, their affordability programs will fit hand in glove with ACP by providing plans that are going to fit inside that $30 envelope. I will go ahead and say Comcast actually already has one, and they're actually advertising them together. So when people sign up for the affordability plan with Comcast, they're also signing up for EBB. Any questions on that? Yes, Supervisor.
So who makes the financial determination that these households are eligible?
So all of that is handled by Lifeline's National Verifier. This is sort of a centralized database. That is also part of what we should hear more details on in December, is how USDA, Secretary of Labor, and I don't remember off the top of my head the other agencies are going to share data to ensure that there is a single source for verifying eligibility across all of the qualifying benefits. So the number of benefits is really, really broad, and that's great. And right now, there is a delay when you are not using, for instance, TANF as your eligibility criteria. So if you're using the school lunch program, that one, that you'll still be verified through the National Verifier program, but they have to send a spreadsheet over to USDA. USDA has to check their list and then send it back. And so there's right now a delay that is supposed to be streamlined by the time this launches. And I believe the plan is that transition to the new system is supposed to happen by March. So they have to move very, very quickly. I'm hopeful that they don't ask for an extension and that this is a very quick process. I do know we have only heard of complaints when you have to submit income documents to qualify for EBB. In general, when people have other qualifying criteria, they've been accepted fairly quickly.
So income is not always required.
Right. So if you are already receiving SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, or certain other other benefits like the Lifeline benefit, then you are already qualified. And all of that data already lives inside the National Verifier database. So it is only when you are outside of that bucket that they have to make an extra step that causes some delay. And they're trying to consolidate that. Oh, it's the U.S. Department of Education, because they added Pell Grants to the eligibility criteria.
And the example that you gave of Comcast already having an affordability program, if you are eligible for Comcast and you get their whatever amount of money that is the $30 additional to that? And I'm assuming they're coordinating that through the same.
So their program offers discounted service at, we believe, 50 and 5, which exceeds the minimum broadband threshold. And the price on that is $10 a month. And what happens is when you apply for EBB with Comcast, they still send your application to the national verifier. When they receive the confirmation back, you are enrolled into their low income affordability program, and you are enrolled into EBB. And so you don't get a bill instead. Well, you get a bill, but your bill is for $0 because the expectation is that the $50 a month now and $30 a month later should cover your monthly fee, any taxes that are associated with it, and it should cover any device fees. Now, if you have more service above and beyond internet, or beyond, if you want service above their lowest threshold, their lowest tier, then you might be paying on that. But you're still getting the full benefit towards your account, and you're still paying for you're still getting a discount on your service from Comcast.
One last question. So is citizenship or anything like that required?
I don't believe so. I don't believe citizenship is required for free and reduced school lunch. And so I can't say for certain on other benefits. We could certainly check with DSS.
I don't think it is for SNAP or
Yeah,
school lunch or anything like that. So
right. There was no language to that effect on either the EBB site or any of the coverage that we've seen.
all right, thank you. That does it for me.
Questions on affordability from anyone else? Okay, then I am happy to share my screen and show everyone the new broadband site. So can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if we go under government and move down here under county executive, there's the link to the broadband accessibility and affordability office. It is notable the Albemarle Broadband Authority site is also under there. Shortly, and with assent from the authority, we will be moving this site over to live under the boards and commissions area. I think that is, during the period when the only exposure was through the county executive's office, I think that made sense. But now that there is a broadband site, moving it out also makes sense. But if we go to the site, we've updated the design to fit the CAPE guidelines. We've included a lot of iterative language. So however you end up at the site, maybe you've been linked through the affordability portion, maybe you've been linked through another link that somebody has provided to you. A lot of the language is going to look the same on the different pages, and that is somewhat intentional. We want to make sure that however you get there, we are talking about overarching goals, but then also able to get into specifics about what's happening in either accessibility or affordability. We are going to include the calendar for the month ahead. We still have our report your broadband speed link. And as Mike mentioned, we do have right on that front page, the service complaints area. So that way, when residents have an issue, they can come to our page and they can find out what their options are for issuing a complaint. We don't provide guidance as to what is the threshold. That is something that I think is up to individual users, and there isn't clear guidance from either the FCC or the SEC. The one area that I'm worried is that we might end up with some people that have a broadband issue on a DSL line, and they click on the SCC that is meant specifically for telephony, and so that's why we've tried to make that as apparent as possible graphically and in the text. Under accessibility, I'm just going to skip ahead to 2021 because that is where obviously we have a lot of activity and where we already have the webinar for the first work session, which is coming up right around the corner on December 3rd. Those meetings are going to be webinar based with a presentation and then a Q&A section. And all of the pages are going to have document boxes that are going to be populated with relevant content. So it's going to be a little bit of work to streamline that, but the goal is that as things get added to different folders relevant to different projects, they're automatically going to show up. So after that work session, the presentation and the video are going to be right there in that document section. And under our affordability programs, we're also going to have links to different plans, and there will be opportunities for people to find out or fill out forms to check their eligibility through us. I did note, as Mike was talking, that I didn't do a great job of sprinkling the BAAO at albemarle.org website throughout this. So that's one thing that I will try to add without making it too bulky and onerous. But if anybody has any comments on the design, on content, please feel free to give us feedback and let us know if there's anything that you think needs changing. The Broadband Authority website, we will be updating to give it a look that is a little bit closer to mirror ours. But one of the goals of building these two sites is to be able to give the community a distinction between what is VOW and what is ABBA, and give people a feel for when it is appropriate for them to reach out to broadband at Albemarle and when it's appropriate to reach out to BAAO. So that is something that we will be working with you guys on to make sure that whatever changes we make to the ABBA site, they reflect the strategic goals and the principles of the authority. Any questions on that?
I'll just say, I think it's great to see that this website will, I mean, ideally, it seems like a natural transition, be able to take the front seat as the thing that makes sense to be public facing for the work, the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office. Like, here's the work that's happening, here's the plans, here's how you can learn more, et cetera. And that the work that we're doing take a back seat because in terms of what is valuable to the public and what they need, reading minutes from a board meeting is useful to a tiny subset of people. But generally speaking, people just want to know, like, where can I get a connection? Like, how's that going to work?
And I think that's going to be the nature of that relationship, is that a lot of that front facing resident and customer facing stuff is going to be on our site. And then, yes, minutes and details that people might want to access, we're going to make sure that it's clear when there's ABBA action, that we make reference to it where appropriate on our site, but we are sending people to the ABBA site in order to get the details.
I think it's a great transition, and I'm glad to see us take a back seat. I think it's a very healthy transition, and part of, like, as I've said often, rendering ourselves useless. That's the goal. This feels like a good little step in that direction.
Jason, I appreciate these changes. They look right on. It has kind of always seemed a little odd that the Broadband Authority was called out, as it was so moving our links to other places makes perfect sense, and doing some reorganization there makes perfect sense too. I would just offer you something that has plagued us since our inception. You always have to keep in mind the fact that when we use the internet to communicate with people on broadband topics, there's a problem that we may not actually be able to reach the target audience. So that's all, just one cautionary note.
Absolutely. I think one thing that we're hopeful for, and I will make note of the attendance of the press on the attendees list. But one thing that we're hopeful for is the more that we are present, public, and available, the more that coverage that occurs is going to steer people towards us, so that where appropriate, people are going to know, oh, this is the work of the broadband office that we can reach out to. We can, we're going to be available to answer questions that, often I suspect get shunted to you guys. So hopefully that is a way that we can reach people that don't have the internet, is through the press where appropriate. Obviously, we will take appropriate cautions from CAPE wherever they have recommendations, but we definitely hear you. And one of our, one of the things on the affordability side, especially, that we want to work on is how we can reach out to people and get them connected even where they lack connectivity.
Right. Well, just make sure you've always got not only a website or an email address, but also a phone number somebody can call.
Yes.
Is there anything else from y'all's side, or is Jason going to keep going?
I think we're in a good spot. Thanks for all the input. Great job on presenting the pages there and working on the pages. We've got some great additions just in this brief overview. So we really appreciate the participation, and glad to be a little more out there. And yeah, I was fortunate to attend a community meeting this Saturday, which is another example. We just need to be out in the community more, particularly since there are numerous people still in Albemarle County who don't have the type of connectivity that is deserved and needed to participate in the modern society. So enough said on all that. I'm glad things are moving ahead. Any other questions? And we can go on.
I'm a little gun shy. I don't want to start in again. And, can we move to new business then? Item A, the Commonwealth Connect Funds.
Yes. Speaking of the event, I was glad to participate in over the weekend. The St. John Road has a Rosenwald School that is in the process of being refurbished and has a National Park Service grant that is providing that service. And Building Goodness Foundation hosted an event there. At the same time, the Commonwealth Connect Fund was introduced at the Rural Caucus a couple of weeks ago. And we had a brief meeting with Chandler at the DHCD, who's running the Commonwealth Connect Fund. So it is being considered. One of the options there, and probably the only option, is it will be based on approval of our the TJPDC and Firefly application for Body 22. So Commonwealth Connect Fund is hand in glove with the Body 22 application announcement. So it's possible that there will be some private funding that comes in and helps offset any cost, particularly for the St. John Road. So it's still underway. Just wanted to make sure the board, if they hear anything about that, that's the genesis of how the Commonwealth Connect Fund came into play. And it is tied directly to Body 22 applications that have been offered funds. So looking forward to seeing how that process works. I know there's probably a lot of questions about that. We'll have more information at the December meeting. So just wanted to get that out there, and then we'll have an old business item on the December meeting where we'll have more information about how that process is going. Okay, that sound good? Any questions? I think we lost Liz, or Chair, you're muted. Okay.
I'm still here and just listening. I don't have any questions for once.
Okay.
So with that said, the exciting new infrastructure bill and the possible broadband funding, Waldo sent us a good note kind of summarizing some of the things that's happening there, but let's read some of that into the record here and understand what steps we should take to make sure we're ready to take advantage of those funds when they do become available.
Although I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to discuss it first. I think we've traded a couple of emails about this, and you've got the best view of it that I've read. So we can go back and forth, but I think you've got a good view of it. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I'm trying to get this fresh in my brain again. But the notion here is that the infrastructure bill that passed Congress a few weeks ago, this provides a whole bunch of funding that will flow across the entire country for further broadband funding, which is great. The overview, or the short version of this is it'll be divided up based on need in each state. We don't know the need in each state. But what we have is the FCC data, which is like notoriously bad for determining where service is and is not available. So this can be this initial 18-month period in which the FCC is going to try to create a detailed broadband availability map. I don't know how they're going to do that without getting a lot more data than they collect right now. And that'll serve as the authoritative source for what percentage of the funding is available to each state. I'll just make up an example and say, if it turns out that 2% of all unconnected households in the country are in Virginia, then Virginia will get 2% of that overall pot of funding. Every state gets at least $100 million. There's $45.5 billion total. So seems like a fair guess that we're going to wind up with about 40 billion divided based on need, above and beyond that, 100 million threshold that everybody gets. So Virginia will get 500 million, $1 billion, something like that. And it might be safest to think of as a second $700 million grant, like we got earlier this year, to further ensure broadband funding across the entire state. So after that whole FCC process, then the NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, I came up with it. NTIA will just allocate the funding. They're just going to give money to states, but based on that formula. And they'll be able to do a little bit of tweaking for it. They're going to require 20% matching grant, or 25%, which the state can pay, or they can pass it along to localities. They can sort it out how their own, however they want. And they have some interesting caveats as to what the funding can be used for, but if for planning, for pre-deployment activities, for data collection, for mapping, for all kinds of stuff. They also require that buried fiber projects provide conduit access points at regular short intervals. You can't just have a long run of fiber. And you got 4 years in which to provide service. And it feels like this is a chance to fill gaps, or maybe even go bigger. What will be permissible to go bigger remains to be seen. We have to see regulatory interpretation of that law to figure out how far that can go. Will this allow competition? Will this allow competition in the form of municipal broadband? Will this allow overlay? Like, we don't have any idea, but we do need to start thinking, what might we not be able to get done, or how can we go bigger beyond what is already really big? And I guess I'll summarize this with somebody else put it to me like this. We have been in a funding scarcity mindset around broadband for years. That has to go. The funding scarcity mindset is wrong and will not serve us anymore. Now we have to be in a funding abundance mindset, which is a very different way about thinking this work. I say that it's like a lifelong Red Sox fan. I haven't adjusted to winning the World Series in 2004. I don't know what to do with victory. Likewise, we need to learn what to do with lots and lots of money and figure out how to make the most of it. That's the good news. The bad news is we have years until this money is going to show up and we'll be able to do anything with it, which may mean that as an organization, we can't disappear quite as early as I'd hoped we might.
Is that the case for the $100 million that's allocated to each state? That it'll be years before we see that money?
Under the legislation, unless the new legislation passes, that $100 million is not given out now, with more going later. All of the money is given out down the road. Okay, all right. Or so is my reading of the law, and I'm not a lawyer.
I will offer one analysis does say that the 100 million could be issued ahead. It would require a revision to the law, which would probably have to pass in the next Congress. But apparently there is desire, because you could apply the 100 million to cover the planning costs. So where Waldo was mentioning that, you could take that 25% and use your planning funds in order to meet the match. One of the alternatives for some states would actually be that the $100 million could go towards all the planning work that needs to go to then speed the implementation. So start your planning now, putting together where you're going to be working. And then as soon as that money comes in, you can start digging. That is obviously dependent on politics. So pick them, choose them. The other thing that I will just say, the FCC has that 18-month window to complete their survey. As Waldo has stated, historically, they have not been great on collecting data. However, we thought that And then they were able to produce an incredible database with broadband pricing that nobody realized they were collecting for years. And that is a really rich resource. And so one of the things that I'll offer is it's possible that the FCC can actually speed this up and do a good job. There's no requirement that they use the full 18 months. And so they could surprise us. And that would probably, still have to wait until a full commission, but they could surprise us and have early the database complete, which would help speed up a lot of this timeline.
But it occurs to me that we've been sort of locked in, laser focused on 25.3, and let's make sure we get everyone to that threshold. By the time this comes to pass, that may or may not be of interest, and there may be very different numbers. So our database of locations and actually available service levels at that location becomes very critical to our ability to establish where our need is. And so I think we want to exploit that, not just for people who think they already have broadband, but for folks who, well, if you don't have gigabit, maybe you don't have broadband. Let's get you in the database too. And ideally, this database would have every serviceable location in the county in it. But I'd be willing to settle for 90%. But I think we should push forward with trying to keep that out there, particularly when we're doing other messaging. Get that out there, get people in the database, and continue to develop that resource, because that's, assuming that everything survives the challenge, we'll have served all the locations we know of, but we'll have served them at the 25.3 standard, and we need to make sure we are not cutting ourselves off there as we move to this mindset of abundance, that this narrow window mindset of abundance, because it won't be abundance forever. We need to be ready to strike when the iron is hot.
And on that, the database that the FCC is putting together does have an underserved criteria that is actually remarkably high at, I believe it's 150/50. So they are, they haven't been allowed to declare 25.3 not broadband, but they have taken the initiative to call anything under 150 underserved, which I think is a positive step, and it does indicate a roadmap for them to escalate the minimum standard of broadband to something closer to that level, which is, the rulemaking is going to happen over the next 12 months. So there's a lot of time for them to make that kind of decision.
Good to hear. Other comments or questions? Okay, other business. Other places we want to be. I'd like to move to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then I'll remind you that our next meeting is Wednesday, December 22nd, I think it is.
Correct.
And look forward to seeing you then, if not before. And have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
I'm gonna go make some
Thanksgiving,
pies.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye, folks.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.